Good morning. December has a way of stirring something in us. The lights, the music, the festivities, the nostalgia causes it to touch our hearts in places that few other seasons can ever reach. And yet, as we learned Sunday morning, if we're not careful, the calendar becomes so full that our hearts are left empty. I'm reminded of something that Corrie ten Boom once said. If the devil cannot make us bad, he'll make us busy. And no other month proves the accuracy of that observation like the month of December. How tragic is it that the season meant to draw us closer to Christ actually crowds him out of our lives? That's why this month in our devotional series, we're going to step aside and slow down long enough to step back into the Christmas stories. Not as people who already know the stories, but as searching souls, inviting God to speak to us through them again. Why? Why revisit the Christmas story? Because sometimes familiarity robs us of the wonder. We know these stories. We know the setting. We know the characters. We can recite them from memory. But stop. That's the problem. The story has simply become a story. But Christmas, the Christmas story, it's not a sentimental tale. It's a supernatural interruption. It's a place where heaven broke into earth, where silence was interrupted by angelic song, where a manger became the meeting place of time and eternity, of deity and humanity. As Max Lucado wrote in God Came Near, heaven's child wrapped in humanity so we could touch God and God could touch us. And that is why we need to revisit the Christmas story. It's not stale. It's stunning. It's not just history. It's hope. And every year, God offers us new eyes to see it again. How? Well, over the next 4 weeks, we're going to do our best to walk through the accounts of both Matthew and Luke and look at the Christmas story not as just an observer, but perhaps a participant. Along the way, we'll see the promise announced, where Gabriel's visit to Mary reminds us that God often does his greatest works in the most unlikely of places. Mary's declaration, "Be it unto me according to thy word," becomes a model for every believer's response to a divine interruption. We'll look at Joseph and see the provision given. Joseph's story is one of obedience and without applause. One writer said Joseph is the quietest man in the Christmas drama, and yet he's perhaps the strongest. He doesn't speak a word in Scripture, but his every action shouts of his faithfulness. His life teaches us that God guides those who listen, even when his path doesn't seem to make sense. Then we'll go to the shepherds and we'll see the praise declared as ordinary men doing ordinary work are suddenly interrupted by a host of heavenly beings. The dark sky is split apart and ripped open by the glory of God, and God descends to a hillside, and the good news comes first to those that the world overlooked. And we'll wrap up the month by looking at Simeon and Anna and the prophecy fulfilled. Those two elderly saints who show us the power of waiting well. They lived with expectation in a culture that had lost hope. What hits home, doesn't it? But God honored their faithfulness and proved to us that no waiting is wasted when God's involved. Simeon held the promise in his hands. Anna proclaimed the promise with her voice. And together they remind us that the Christmas story is the story of a God who finishes what he starts. Each week will enforce and reinforce a simple truth. Christmas is about the initiative of God and his invitation to us. And we will learn again that He still speaks, He still guides, He still saves, and He still fulfills His word. What's our goal? Seeing Christmas with fresh eyes. My prayer for this month is very simple. It's that we would see Christmas again, not just as a memory, but as a miracle. Not as a story for the season, but as a truth for all seasons. The Apostle Paul said in Galatians 4:4, when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth His Son. Christmas reminds us that God is never late, God is never absent, and God is never silent. And if God moved heaven and earth 2,000 years ago to bring His Son into the world, surely He's still at work here and now in your life and in my life, and He is still bringing His purposes to pass. So as we begin this journey, I invite you to do something. Slow down. Take just a moment and ask the Lord to let these familiar scriptures speak to your heart in fresh ways. Let this month be more than just a countdown to Christmas. Let it be an encounter with the God who stepped into our darkness with light, into our brokenness with healing, and into our lostness with redemption. So before we rush into the rest of December, let's pause long enough to remember that Christmas is not just about something that happened. It's about someone who came. And He is still coming to hearts that are willing to make room for Him. Let's step into the Christmas story this season, and let's let the Christmas story step into us. God bless you this morning.